Sacramento State wants to pave a horse racing track and put up a football stadium or something along those lines. It's a pretty crazy idea. It's something that is out there, and yet I think it's an idea so crazy it could possibly work, assuming the two bodies involved weren't Cal Expo and Sacramento State, the two bodies that just happen to be involved with this potential project. For Sacramento State, they are an entity that just likes to lie at this point.
I'd lie for you.
Yeah, but you lie all the time. You lie for no reason. Ryan, you just like to lie.
Let's not mince words about this in the slightest, by the way. Sacramento State President Dr. Luke Wood and their athletic director Mark Orr lied to the public when they went out there with their two expensive renders in hand and talked about a new stadium and transformation, only to not have the plans, let alone the funding in place to accomplish any such development. Honestly, I'm beginning to think that Sacramento State, we're going FBS press conference, is going to live in Sacramento sports infamy alongside the likes of the Maloof brothers posing with Jimmer Fredette or Ron Burkle's soulless face at the MLS Sacramento expansion announcement. However, the bumbling nincompoops at Sac State just may have met their match in the folks who run Cal Expo. They've been stringing along Sacramento Stadium proposals for, I kid you not, 50 plus years now. Ask the Sacramento Capitals, with an O, not an A, about building a potential new stadium at the Cal Expo site. Forget about that for a second. Do you want to know what the first non-horse racing related sporting facility proposal for Cal Expo was? Plans in 1967 called for a kick-ass road racing course to be built here. That would have been pretty sweet, but of course it doesn't get built, just like a number of other sporting facility plans at Cal Expo over the years. Well, apart from the temporary Heart Health Park and the Sacramento River Rats who turned some old rodeo enclosures into the worst roller hockey venue ever erected. We'll get to the former in a minute, and as for the latter, sadly I still can't find any photos or videos of it, but make no mistake, it was really terrible, and to that end, I do not believe there is a single way Sacramento State and Cal Expo can produce something worse than a roller hockey rink that was melting. Then again, given those involved, I wouldn't put it past them either. The question here is a simple one. Why? Why would Cal Expo and Sacramento State hold talks on this fever dream of a stadium proposal? For Cal Expo, it's actually quite simple. The name of the game here is to lease any and everything they can on the site to make money. You see, Cal Expo can keep any revenue generated through leasing the land on the site, but land sales, they go directly to California's general fund. That, of course, is what derailed the Kings' various attempts to build a stadium out there. The team wanted to buy the land, and Cal Expo was like, well, you can lease it on favorable terms, and that just was a non-starter. This is also what led to that really confusing land swap arrangement between Cal Expo, Natomas, and the Kings that would have saw the state fair moved out to Natomas. Of course, that doesn't happen. Slightly off topic, but can we just put the zoo out in Natomas already and be done with it? Like, why are we continuing to drag that saga on and on? Anyway, back to Cal Expo. They want to lease various land plots so they can bring in revenue to offset the huge financial losses they've been incurring in recent times. They do not care about Sacramento State football. They do not care about assisting another state of California entity. That is irrelevant to them. They just want someone to lease this land and fill their coffers. As for the Hornets, this is, I don't want to say a sudden about face. It's an about face for sure. It took them quite a long time to get there over their original stadium plans that were released in September of 2024. You know, calling those plans feels a bit generous to the administration over at CSUS. They didn't have new stadium plans. They had hopes and prayers. What they didn't have was even a cost estimate as to what it would take to get the facility erected. Apparently, they believe doing something with the Cal Expo racetrack grandstand would potentially be more cost effective. But when you have no money or little money, the answer is almost never do something that requires you spending a lot of money. And that's the rub with these plans. Turning the Cal Expo track into some sort of football viable venue is going to require significant investment. Maybe not as much as renovating Hornet Stadium would cost, but far more than the school seems to have at its disposal. And make no mistake about this, Cal Expo is not paying for any of these renovations. They will not invest a dime in that potential project. They have proven to be world-class cheapskates over the years, nickel and diming anyone who so much as thought about using their grounds. Their MO since the late 1960s has been a simple one. Sure, you can use this land, but you're going to pay us handsomely to do so, and you're going to also be required to agree to our fairly onerous terms that favor us in terms of lease lengths and all of that good stuff. Honestly, they are tighter with their purse strings than Frank Reynolds.
What is this?
I'm tightening the purse strings on this relationship until there's a little bit of give and take.
History shows Cal Expo is not going to invest in anything that involves another person leasing the land and their project. That's just not how they operate. Then we get to Sac State. They would, of course, be the ones required to invest in the stadium renovation at the main grandstand. I'm fairly certain they cannot use student fees to fund any sort of facility that the school does not own outright. Student fees seem to be just about their only source of financial support at this point for athletic facilities, and I can only imagine the backlash to them using those student fees to build what will be a temporary stadium they do not own off campus. That backlash would be swift and it would be fierce. There's another quirk here that does need to be addressed as well. The Cal Expo Board of Directors. This is a rotating cast of characters. There is no permanence to it. Who you are dealing with today to approve the deal won't be the same folks you deal with 5 years from now. It's a partnership truly fraught with a lot of potential difficulties at any given moment in its lifespan. Oh yeah, hey, CSU students, the school just spent millions of your fees on what they called phase 0 of the Hornet Stadium renovation, and now all of that money and all of those investments are about to be rendered moot because the school wants to move its football team to Cal Expo. Essentially, a bunch of money was just set on fire, flushed down the toilet because those running Sacramento State suck at planning things and thinking things through. Great fiscal discipline there, guys. It's weird how Sacramento State went from getting boned by Alex Spanos on that stadium donation in 2004 to now doing basically the same thing to their student body. Putting all of those issues off to the side for just a moment, there's actually a way forward for this project, the football stadium at the Cal Expo racetrack. The thing is if it's going to get completed, it will be in a way that does not benefit Sacramento State in the slightest. For proof of that, we just need to look over at Heart Health Park across the way on the Cal Expo grounds. The structure itself has never ever been owned by Sac Republic or Cal Expo. They own the land, but the facility itself has been owned and operated by, well, a group that's changed hands a few times over the past decade, mostly Spectra, which has now come under the purview of Oakview Group. They were originally called Ovations Fanfare. Don't worry about the names, that's not important. What is important here is that they are the ones who paid to have Heart Health Park, or what was formerly known as Bonnie Field, constructed. Cal Expo charges a little over $100,000 annually for the concessionaire to lease that land and operate their events. The fairgrounds itself actually keep parking revenue as part of that agreement. We don't really know the details of the agreement between Sacramento Republic and OVG, Spectra, Ovations, whatever you want to call them, but they probably keep the bulk of that revenue. I'm sure there's some splitting of ticket sales. Sac Republic don't get nothing from this partnership, but it's far less than they would receive had they owned the facility outright. Meanwhile, revenue generated from all of the other events goes to the owner-operator, OVG, as does all the concession sales, all of that stuff. It goes to them, not the soccer team. It's also why Sacramento Republic have been desperate to get out of that facility from basically day one. Yes, there was the MLS element related to it, but there's also the financial ramifications of not being able to keep all your ticket sales or all of the concessions revenue, or even just giving that concessions contract, selling that to someone. The club have desperately wanted a home where they keep those profits as well as profits made from any other events hosted at the facility. If a permanent facility was viable at Cal Expo, Sac Republic would have explored it. They probably would have pursued it because it would have been a hell of a lot easier getting something done there than at the rail yards. The thing was, the money never made any sense to do it at Cal Expo. Building a sports stadium on a site with a short-term lease, the math doesn't add up on that. This brings us back to Sacramento State and their plans for the Cal Expo racetrack. The only way this renovation gets done is if a third party comes in and pays for it in exchange for owning and operating the facility. In other words, they get to keep most of the money. Sac State will obviously get some from ticket sales like Sac Republic get, but they will not receive the lion's share of that sum. What no one's talking about here is why has no one wanted to develop anything at Cal Expo for the past 5, 10, 20 years at this point? They have been more than willing to lease out their land to any and everyone who had a plan for it, and no one could be bothered to do so. That's because no one wants to sign a lease with a group that does not have a sterling track record of reliability. Temporary bleachers and a rectangular pitch that cost in the ballpark of $3 million, you can recoup that over the span of a short-term lease. That's something you can make back in 3 to 5 years. Pumping in $40 million to renovate the Cal Expo racetrack into a football facility? You need a longer runway to get that investment back. You can't do that over the course of a 5-6 year lease. You need at least 10 years, and Cal Expo has never shown a willingness to grant leases of that length, especially considering no one knows what the future holds for Sacramento State football. Even if the school was a lock to go FBS, which we know is far from a certainty, I'm not sure this type of arrangement makes financial sense for the school. First, they see parking revenue along with the ability to provide current students and staff with free parking outside of the stadium lots on weekends. If you have a Sac State parking pass, you can basically park anywhere you want on campus during non-peak hours outside of the football designated lots. You're telling me this group is going to now spend $15. That's what it costs to park at Sacramento Republic games. $15 to go see their school play off campus? Maybe Sac State could pay Cal Expo for free spaces for students and staff. I don't know how that works, but then they're still taking a financial hit. They've gone from making some parking revenue to no parking revenue and actually taking a loss on it if they need to pay for free spaces. In this situation where a third party comes in and owns and operates the renovated Cal Expo Stadium, CSUS no longer gets all revenue generated from ticket sales. I don't know what the split between school and stadium operator would look like, if it's 50, if it's higher, if it's lower. I assume the entire deal with this renovation at Cal Expo has to do with getting more premium seating, which of course fetches much higher prices. Even then, though, is that going to offset all of the other losses incurred by the school? I'm not entirely sure it does. And before the delusional Stingers Up Brigade comes in here and tells me, oh, we'll make so much money because we're going to sell 40,000 tickets. It's going to be a 45,000 seat capacity. Come on, man. Like, it's time for a reality check. Who are you selling these tickets to? There aren't 35,000 people in the city wanting to pay $40 to see Sac State host San Diego State or Sam Houston State. Cal is struggling to get 35,000 people in Memorial Stadium to see the likes of NC State or Arizona State. And no, Penn State is not coming to Sacramento to play against the Hornets. Texas isn't going to turn up one Saturday in October. That's not happening. Although I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Dr. Luke Wood and the athletic director Mark Orr kind of hinted at that or suggested it, or the way they're doing things, maybe they'll just outright state it like, hey, we could host Penn State in our new Cal Expo Stadium. Yeah, sure thing, boss. Those running Sacramento State also promoted plans for an on-campus stadium they knew had no chance of being built. A group that refuses to acknowledge the fact it didn't have any tangible plans for this FBS move. The new stadium was as unserious could be. Dr. Luke Wood assumed that he could just say and tweet, oh, we deserve it, media market, we deserve it, and that would be enough to get the program to FBS. And of course, we all know how that turned out. Like everything else surrounding Sacramento State athletics, throwing the idea of a Cal Expo Stadium at the wall is another hidden hope operation from a collection of individuals who seem more interested in creating buzz than doing the actual hard work needed to make their plans and their ambitions successful. Which is sort of sad considering I actually believe turning the Cal Expo racetrack and that main grandstand into a multi-purpose sporting facility could work. I think there's something to that idea. If those involved in making the project a reality happen to be pretty much anyone else than Cal Expo and Sacramento State, two of California's biggest do-nothing entities. Who knows though, maybe having these two wildly incompetent organizations work together may see them cobble together something productive, something that does get over the line. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, but anything's possible. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to hear the story of the famed Sacramento football prep star who became a national punchline, check out the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And to understand why brands like Tower Records, Sacramento's very own, have still managed to find life outside the country, you can check out the video in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Until next time, I'm Shine Hollis. This is the Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out the 25.